Chapter 9. Letter. Mina Harker to Lucy Westerner. Budapest, 24th August. My dearest Lucy, I know you will be anxious to hear all that has happened since we parted at the railway station at Whitby. Well, my dear, I got to Hull all right, caught a boat to Hamburg, and then the train on here. I feel I can hardly recall anything of the journey except that I knew I was coming to Jonathan, and that, as I should have to do some nursing, I had better get all the sleep I could. I found my dear one, oh, so thin and pale and weak-looking. All the resolution has gone out of his dear eyes, and that quiet dignity which I told you was in his face had vanished. He is only a wreck of himself, and he does not remember anything that has happened to him for a long time past. At least, he wants me to believe so, and I shall never ask. He has had some terrible shock, and I fear it might tax his poor brain if he were to try to recall it. Sister Agatha, who is a good creature and a born nurse, tells me that he raved of dreadful things while he was off his head. I wanted her to tell me what they were, but she would only cross herself and say she would never tell, that the ravings of the sick were the secrets of God, and that if a nurse through her vocation should hear them, should respect her trust. She is a good sweet soul, and the next day, when she saw I was troubled, she opened up the subject again, and after saying that she could never mention what my poor dear raved about, added, I can tell you this much, my dear, that it was not anything about what he has done wrong himself, and you, as his wife to be, have no cause to be concerned. He has not forgotten you or what he owes to you. His fear was great and of terrible things, which no mortal can think of. I believe the dear soul thought I was being jealous about Jonathan, and yet, my dear, let me whisper, I felt a thrill of joy go through me when I knew that no other woman was the cause of the trouble, and thus sitting by his bedside where I can see his face while he sleeps. He is waking. When he woke he asked me for his coat, as he wanted to get something from the pocket. I asked Sister Agatha, and she brought all his things. I saw that amongst them was his notebook, and was going to ask him to let me look at it, for I knew then I might find some clue of his trouble. But I suppose he must have seen my wish in my eyes, for he sent me away over to the window, saying he wanted quiet alone for a moment. Then he called me back, and when I came he had his hand over his notebook, and he said to me very solemnly, Mina, I knew that when he was in dearest earnest, for he was never called me by the name since he asked me to marry him. You know, my dear, ideas of trust between a husband and wife. There should be no secret, no concealment. I have had a great shock, and when I try to think of what it is I feel, my head spin around. I do not know if it was real or the dreaming of a madman. You know I have had brain fever, and that is to be mad. The secret is here, and I do not want to know it. I want to take up my life here with our marriage. For, my dear, we have decided to be married as soon as the formalities are complete. Are you willing, Wilhelmina, to share my ignorance? Here is the book. Take it and keep it. Read it if you will, but never let me know, unless, indeed, some solemn duty should come upon me to go back to the bitter hours, asleep or awake, sane or mad, recorded here. He fell back, exhausted, and I took the book under his pillow and kissed him. I have asked Sister Agatha to beg Superior to let our wedding be in this afternoon, and I am waiting her reply. She has come and told me that the chaplain of the English Mission Church has been sent for. We are to be married in an hour, or soon after Jonathan wakes. Lucy, this time has come and gone. I feel very sullen, but very, very happy. Jonathan woke with a little after the hour, and all was ready, and he sat up in bed, propped up by pillows. He answered his I will firmly and strongly. I could hardly speak, my heart is so full that even these words seem to choke me. The dear sisters were so kind. Please God, I shall never, never forget them, nor the grave or sweet responsibilities I have taken upon me. I must tell you of my wedding present. When the chaplain and the sisters had left me alone with my husband— oh, Lucy, it is the first time I have written these words— my husband— left me alone with my husband, I took the book from under his pillow and wrapped it up in white paper, and tied it with a little pale ribbon which was wound around my neck, and sealed it over the knot with sealing wax. And for my seal I used my wedding ring. Then I kissed it and showed it to my husband, and told him that I would keep it, and then it would be outward a visible sign for all of our lives that we trusted each other, that I would never open it unless it were for his own dear sake, or for the sake of some stern duty. Then he took my hand in his, and oh, Lucy, it was the first time he took his wife's hand, and then said it was the dearest thing in all the wide world, that he would go through all the pain again, past and when, if need be. Poor dear meant to have said a part of the past, but he cannot think of time yet, and I shall not wonder if first it mixes up not only the month, but the year. Well, my dear, what can I say? I can only tell him that I was the happiest woman in the wide world, and that I had nothing to give him except myself, my life, and my trust, and that with these went my love and duty for all the days of my life. And, my dear, when he kissed me and drew me up to him with his poor weak hands, it was like a very solemn pledge between us. Lucy, dear, do you know why I tell you all this? It is not because it is all sweet to me, but because you have been and are very dear to me. It was my privilege to be your friend and guide you when you came from the schoolroom to prepare for the world of life. I want you to see now, and with the eyes of a very happy wife, where the duty has led me, so that in your own married life you too may be as happy as I am. My dear, please Almighty God, your life may be all it promises, a long day of sunshine, with no harsh wind, no forgetting duty, no distrust. I must not wish you no pain, for that can never be, but I do hope you will be always as happy as I am now. Goodbye, my dear. I shall post this at once, and perhaps write you very soon again. I must stop, for Jonathan is waking. I must attend to my husband. Your ever-loving Mina Parker. Letter, Lucy Westerner to Mina Parker. Whitby, 30th August. My dearest Mina, oceans of love and millions of kisses, and may you soon be your own home with your husband. I wish you could be coming home soon enough to stay with us here. The strong air would soon restore Jonathan as it has quite restored me. I have an appetite of a cormorant, am full of life and sleep well. You will be glad to know that I have quite given up walking in my sleep. I think I have not stirred out of my bed for a week. That is, when I once got up into the night. Arthur says I am getting fat. By the way, I forgot to tell you that Arthur is here. We have such walks and drives and rides and rowing and tennis and fishing together, and I love him more than ever. He tells me that he loves me more, but I doubt that, for at first he told me that he couldn't love me more than he did then. But this is nonsense. There he is, calling to me. So no more just at present from your loving. P.S. Mother sends her love. Seems better, poor dear. P.P.S. We are to be married on 28th September. Dr. Seward's Diary. 20th August. The case of Renfield grows even more interesting. He is now so far quieted that there are spells of cessation from his passion. For the first week after his attack, he was perpetually violent. Then one night, just as the moon rose, he grew quiet and kept murmuring to himself, "Now I can wait, now I can wait." That didn't tame to tell me, so I ran down at once to have a look at him. He was still in the straight waistcoat and the padded room, but the fused look had gone from his face, and his eyes had something of their old pleading. I might almost say cringing softness. I was satisfied with his present condition and directed him to be relieved. The attendants hesitated, but finally carried out my wishes without protest. It was a strange thing that the patient had humor enough to see their distrust. For coming close to me, he had in a whisper, all the while looking furtively at them. "They think I could hurt you. Fancy me hurting you, the fools." It was something soothing, somehow, to the feelings to find myself dissociated, even in the mind of this poor madman from the others. But all the same, I did not follow his thoughts. Am I to take it that I have anything in common with him, so that we are, as it were, to stand together? Or has he to gain from me some good so stupendous that my well-being is needful to him? I must find out later on. Tonight he will not speak. Even the offer of a kitten or even a full-grown cat will not tempt him. He will only say, "I don't take any stalking cats. I have more to think of now. I can wait. I can wait." After a while I left him. The attendant tells me that he was quiet until just before dawn. And then he began to get uneasy, and at length violent, until at last he fell into a paroxysm which exhausted him so that he swooned into a sort of coma. 3 nights has the same thing happened. Violent all day, then quiet from moonrise to sunset. I wish I could get some clue to the cause. It would almost seem as if there was some influence which came and went. Happy thoughts. We shall tonight play sane wits against mad ones. He escaped before without our help. Tonight he shall escape with it. We shall give him a chance, and have the men ready to follow in case they are required. 23rd August. The unexpected always happens. How well Disraeli knew life. Our bird, when he found the cage open, would not fly, so all our subtle arrangements were for naught. At any rate, we have proved one thing, that the spell of quietness lasts a reasonable time. We shall in future be able to ease the bonds for a few hours each day. I have given orders to the night attendant merely to shut him in the padded room, when once he is quiet, until the hour before sunrise. Poor soul's body will enjoy the relief, if his mind cannot appreciate it. Hark, the unexpected again. I am called. The patient has once more escaped. Later. Another night adventure. Renfield artfully waited until the attendant was entering the room to inspect, then he dashed out past him and flew down the passage. I sent word for the attendants to follow. Again he went to the grounds of the same deserted house, and they found him in the same place, pressed against the same old chapel door. When he saw me, he became furious, and had not the attendant seized him in time, he would have tried to kill me. As we were holding him, a strange thing happened. He suddenly redoubled his efforts, and then as suddenly grew calm. I looked round instinctively and could see nothing. Then I caught the patient's eye and followed it, but could trace nothing as if it looked like the moonlit sky, except a big bat, which was flapping its silently and ghostly way to the west. Bats are usually wheel and flit around, but this one seemed to go straight on, as if it knew where it was bound for, or had some intention of its own. The patient grew calmer every instant, and presently said, "You needn't tie me, I shall go quietly." Without trouble, we came back to the house. I feel there is something ominous in his calm, and shall not forget this night. Lucy Westerna's Diary. Hellingham, 24th August. I must imitate Mina. Keep writing things down. Then we shall have long talks as we do when we meet. I wonder when it will be. I wish you were here with me again, for I feel so unhappy. Last night I seemed to be dreaming again just as I did at Whitby. Perhaps it is a change of air, or getting home again. It is dark and horrid to me, for I can remember nothing, but I'm full of vague fear. I feel so weak and worn out. When Arthur came to lunch, he looked quite grieved when he saw me, and I hadn't the spirit to be cheerful. I wonder if I could sleep in Mother's room tonight. I shall make an excuse to try. 25th August. Another bad night. Mother did not seem to take any proposal. She seems not too well herself, and doubtless she fears to worry me. I tried to keep awake, and succeeded for a while, But then the clock struck 12. It waked me from a doze, so I must have been falling asleep. There was a sort of scratching or flapping at the window, but I did not mind it, as I remember no more. I suppose I must then have fallen asleep. More bad dreams. I wish I could remember them. This morning I'm horribly weak. My face is ghostly pale, and my throat pains me. There must be something wrong with my lungs, for I didn't seem to get enough air. I shall try to cheer up when Arthur comes, or else I will know he will be miserable to see me so.
Letter, Arthur Holmwood to Dr. Seward. Albemarle Hotel, 13 August. My dear Jack, I want you to do me a favor. Lucy's ill. That is, she has no special disease, but she looks awful and is getting worse every day. I have asked her if there is any cause. I do not dare ask her mother, for to disturb the poor lady's mind about her daughter in her present state of health would be fatal. Mrs. Westerner has confided to me that her doom is spoken, disease of the heart, though poor Lucy does not know yet. I am sure that there is something preying on that poor girl's mind. I am almost distracted when I think of her. To look at her gives me a pang. I told her I should ask you to see her, and though she demurred me at first, I know why, old fellow, she finally consented. It will be a painful task for you, I know, old friend, but it is for her sake, and I must not hesitate to ask, or you to act. You are to come to lunch at Willingham tomorrow, at 2 o'clock, so try not to rouse any suspicion of Mrs. Rosina, and after your lunch, Lucy will take an opportunity of being alone with you. I shall come in for tea, and we can go away together. I am filled with anxiety, and want to consult with you alone as soon as I can after you. Do not fail. Arthur. Telegram, Arthur Holmwood to Steward. Am summoned to see my father, who is worse. Am writing. Write me fully by tonight's post to ring. Wire if necessary. Letter from Dr. Seward to Arthur Holmwood, 2nd of September. My dear old fellow, with regard to Miss Westerina's death, I hasten to let you know that at once that my opinion there is not a functional disturbance of any malady that I know of. At the same time, I am not by any means satisfied with her appearance. She is woefully different from what she was when I saw her last. Of course, you must bear in mind that I have not full opportunity of examination, such as I should wish. Our very friendship makes a little difficulty which not even medical science or custom can bridge over. I had better tell you exactly what happened, leaving you with a draw, in a measure, your own conclusions. I shall then say what I have done and propose doing. I found Miss Wersina in seemingly gay spirits. Her mother was present, and in a few seconds I made up my mind that she was trying all she knew to mislead her mother and prevent her from being anxious. I have no doubt she guesses, if she does not know, what need of caution there is. We lunched alone, and as we all exerted ourselves to be cheerful, we got some kind of reward for our labors, some real cheerfulness among us. Then Mrs. Westerner went to lie down, and Lucy was left with me. We went into her boudoir. Until we got there, her gaiety remained, for the servants were coming and going. As soon as the door was closed, however, the mask fell from her face, and she sank down in a chair with a great sigh, and hid her eyes with her hand. When I saw that her high spirits had failed, I at once took advantage of her reaction to make a diagnosis. She said to me very sweetly, "I cannot tell you how I loathe talking about myself." I reminded her that a doctor's confidence was sacred, but that you were grievously anxious about her. She caught on to my meaning at once, and settled the matter in a word. "Tell Arthur everything you choose. I do not care for myself, but all for him. So I am quite free." I could easily see that she is somewhat bloodless, but I could not see any usual anemic signs, and by chance I was able to test the quality of her blood, for in opening a window which was a stiff cord gave way, and she cut her hand slightly on broken glass. It was a slight matter of itself, but it gave me evident chance, and I secured a few drops of blood and have analyzed them. The qualitative analysis gives me quite normal condition, and shows, I should infer, in itself a vigorous state of health. In other physical matters, I was quite satisfied that there is no need for anxiety. but as there must be a cause somewhere, I have come to the conclusion that it must be something mental. She complains of difficulty in breathing satisfactorily at times, and of heavy lethargic sleep, with dreams that frighten her, but regarding which she can remember nothing. She says that as a child she used to walk in her sleep, and that when Whitby the habit came back, and that once she walked out in the night and went to Eastcliff where Miss Murray found her. She assures me that of late the habit has not returned. I am in doubt, and so have done the best thing I know to do. I have written to my old friend and master, Professor Van Helsing of Amsterdam, who knows as much about obscure diseases as anyone in the world. I have asked him to come over, and as you told me that all things would be at your charge, I have mentioned to him who you are in your relations to Miss Westernan. This, my dear fellow, is the only obedience to your wishes, for I am too proud and happy to do anything I can for her. Van Helsing would, I know, do anything for me for a personal reason. So, no matter on what ground he comes, we must accept his wishes. He is a seemingly arbitrary man, but this is because he knows what he is talking about better than anyone else. He is a philosopher and a metaphysician, and of the most advanced scientists of this day. And he has, I believe, an absolutely open mind. This, with an iron nerve, the temper of an icebrook, and an indomitable resolution, self-command, and toleration exalted from virtues of blessings, and the kindness and truest heart that beats, these form his equipment for a noble work that he is doing for mankind, work both in theory and practice, for his views are wide and all-embracing sympathy. I tell you these facts that you may know why I have such confidence in him. I have asked him to come at once. I shall see Miss Westerner tomorrow. She is to meet me at the stores, so that I will not alarm her mother by too early a repetition of my call. Yours always, John Stewart. Letter: Abraham von Helsing, M.D., Ph.D., D.Lit., etc., to Dr. Stewart. 2nd September. My good friend, when I have received your letter, I am already coming to you. By good fortune, I can leave at once, without wrong to do any of those who have trusted me. Were fortune other, then it would bad of those who have trusted, for I come to my friend when he call me to aid of those he holds dear. Tell your friend that when the time you suck from my wound so swiftly the poison of the gangrene, from the knife that our friend, too nervous, let sleep, you did more for him than when he wants my aids, and you call for them than all his great fortune could do. But it is pleasure added to do for him, your friend, it is to you that I come. Have then rooms for me in Great Eastern Hotel, so that I may be near at hand, and please to arrange that we may see the young lady, not too late tomorrow, for it is likely that I have to return here that night. But if need be, I shall come again in 3 days, and stay longer if I must. Till then, goodbye, my friend John. Van Helsing. Letter, Dr. Seward to the Honorable Arthur Holmwood. 3rd September. My dear Art, Van Helsing is come and gone. He came on to me with Hillingham and found that, by Lucy's discretion, her mother was lunching out, so that we were alone with her. Van Helsing made a very careful examination of the patient. He is to report to me, and I shall advise you, for, of course, I was not present at the time. He is, I fear, much concerned, but says he must think. When I told him of our friendship and how you must trust me in the matter, he said, "You must tell him all you think. Tell him what I think, if you can guess it, if you will. Nay, I am not jesting. This is no jest, but life and death, perhaps more." I asked what he meant by that, for he was very serious. This was when he had come back to town, and was having a cup of tea before starting on his return to Amsterdam. He would not give me further clue. You must not be angry with him, Art, because his very reticence means that all his brains are working for her good. He will speak plainly enough when the time comes, be sure. So I told him I would simply write the account of our visit, just as I was doing a descriptive article of the Daily Telegraph. He seemed not to notice, but remarked that the smuts in London were not quite so bad as they used to be when he was a student here. I'm to get his report tomorrow, if he can possibly make it. In any case, I am to have a letter. Well, as to the visit, Lucy was more cheerful than on the day I first saw her, and certainly looked better. She had lost something of the ghastly look that so upset you, and her breathing was normal. She was very sweet to the professor, as she always is, and tried to make him feel at ease, although I could see that the poor girl was making a hard struggle for it. I believe Van Helsing saw it too, for I saw a quick look under his bushy brows that I knew of old. Then he began to chat of all things except ourselves and diseases, and with such infinite geniality I could see poor Lucy's pretense and animation merge into reality. Then, without any seeming change, he brought the conversation gently around to his visit, and suavely said, "My dear young miss, I have so great pleasure because you are much beloved. That is much, my dear, even were there that I do not see. They told me that you were in spirits, and that you were ghastly pale." Then I said, "Poof!" Then he snapped his fingers at me and went on. "But you and I shall show them how wrong they are. How can he pointed at me with the same look and gesture that he did once when he pointed me out in class, or rather after, a particular occasion which he never fails to remind me of, know anything of young ladies. He has his madmans to play with, and to bring them back to happiness, and to those that love them. It is so much to do, and oh, but there are rewards that we can bestow with such happiness. But the young ladies, he has no wife nor daughter, and the young do not tell themselves to the young, but to the old, like me, who have known so much more sorrows than causes of them. So, my dear, we will send him away to smoke the cigarettes in the garden, whilst you and I have a little talk to ourselves." I took the hint and strolled about, and presently the professor came to the window and called me in. He looked grave, but said, "I have made a careful examination, and there is no functional cause. But with you I agree that there has been much blood lost. It has been, but is not. But the condition of her are in no way anemic. I have asked her to send me her maid, that I may be asked one or two questions, that so I may not chance to miss something. I know well what she will say, and yet there is cause. There is always cause for everything. I must go back home and think. You must send me a telegram every day, and if there be cause I shall come again. The disease, for not to be all well as the disease, interests me, and the sweet young dear, she interests me too. She charmed me, and for her, if not for you or disease, I come." As I told you, he would not say a word more, even when we were alone. And so now, Art, you know all I know. I shall keep stern watch. I shall trust your poor father is rallying. It must be a terrible thing for you, my dear old fellow, to be placed in such a position between two people who are both dear to you. I know your idea of duty to your father, and you are right to stick to it. If need be, I shall send you word to come once to Lucy. Do not be so over-anxious unless you hear from me. Dr. Seward's Diary for September. The Fagus patient seems to keep our interest in him. He had only one outburst, and that was yesterday at the unusual time. Just before the stroke of noon he began to grow restless. The attendant knew from the symptoms, and at once summoned aid. Fortunately, the men came at a run, and were just in time, for at the stroke of noon he became so violent that it took all their strength to hold him. In about 5 minutes, however, he began to get more and more quiet, and finally sank into a sort of melancholy, in which state he has remained up to now. The attendant tells me that his screams whilst in the paroxysm were really appalling. I found my hands full when I got in, attending to some of the other patients who were frightened by him. Indeed, I can quite understand the effect, for the sounds disturbed even me, though I was some distance away. It is now after the dinner hour in the asylum, and as yet my patient sits in the corner brooding, with a dull, sullen, woebegone look in his face, which seems rather to indicate than show something directly. I cannot quite understand it. Later. Another change in my patient. At 5 o'clock I looked in on him and found him seemingly as happy and contented as he used to be. He was catching flies and eating them, and was keeping note of his capture and making nail marks on the edge of the door between the ridges of padding. When he saw me, he came over and apologized for his bad conduct and asked me in a very humble, cringing way to be led back to his own room, and to have his notebook again. I thought it well to be his humor again, so back to his room he went, and opened the window. He has the sugar of his tea spread on the windowsill, and is reaping quite a harvest of flies. He's not now eating them, but putting them in a box as of old, and is already examining the corners of his room to find a spider. I tried to get him to talk about the past few days, for any clue of his thoughts would be immense help to me, but he would not rise. For a moment or two he looked very sad, and said in a sort of faraway voice, as though saying it rather to himself than to me, "All over, all over. He has deserted me. No hope for me now unless I do it myself." Then suddenly, turning me in a resolute way, he said, "Doctor, won't you be very good to me and let me have a little more sugar? I think it would be good for me." "And the flies?" I said. "Yes, the flies like it too, and I like the flies, therefore I like it." And there are people who know so little as to think madmen do not argue. I procured him a double supply, and left him as happy a man as, I suppose, any in the world. I wish I could fathom his mind. Midnight. Another change in him. I had been to see Miss Wisterina, whom I found much better, and had just returned, and was standing on my own gate looking at the sunset, when once more I heard him yelling. At his room on this side of the house I could hear better than in the morning. It was a shock to me to turn from the wonderful smoky beauty of the sunset over London, with its lurid lights and inky shadows, all the marvelous tints that come from the foul clouds even as in foul water, and to realize all the grim sternness of my own cold stone building, with its wealth of breathing misery, and my own desolate heart to endure it all. I reached him just as the sun was going down, and from his window saw a red disk sink. As it sank, he became less and less frenzied, and just as it dipped, he slid from the hands that held him, an inert mass, on the floor. It is wonderful, however, what intellectual recuperation power lunatics have, for within a few minutes he stood up quite calmly and looked around him. I signaled to the attendants not to hold him, for I was anxious to see what he would do. He went straight over to the window and brushed out the crumbs of sugar. Then he took his flat box and emptied it outside, then threw away the box. Then he shut the window, and crossing over, sat down on his bed. All this surprised me, so I asked him, "Are you not going to keep flies any more?" "No," he said. "I'm sick of all that rubbish." He certainly is a wonderfully interesting study. I wish I could get some glimpse of his mind, or of all the cause of his sudden passion. Stop. There may be a clue after all. If we can find why today his paroxysms came at high noon and at sunset. Can it be that there is a malign influence of the sun, or periods which affects certain natures, as at times the moon does others? We shall see. Telegram, Steward, London to Van Helsing, Amsterdam. September 4th. Patient still better today. Telegram, Steward, London to Van Helsing, Amsterdam. 5th September. Patient greatly improved. Good appetite, sleeps naturally. Good spirits, color coming back. Telegram, Seward, London to Van Helsing, Amsterdam. 6th September. Terrible change for the worse. Come at once. Do not lose an hour. I hold over telegram to Homewood till I have seen you. Chapter 10. Letter. Dr. Seward to the Honorable Arthur Homewood. 6th September. My dear Art, my news today is not so good. Lucy this morning had gone back a bit, There is, however, one good thing which has arisen from it. Mrs. Westerner was naturally anxious concerning Lucy, and has consulted me professionally about her. I took advantage of the opportunity, and told her that my old master, Van Helsing, the great specialist, was coming to stay with me, and that I would put her in his charge conjointly with myself. So now we can come and go without alarming her unduly. For a shock to her would mean sudden death, and this, in Lucy's weak condition, might be disastrous to her. We are hedged in the difficulties, all of us, my poor fellow, but, please God, we shall come through them all right. If any need, I shall write, so that, if you do not hear from me, take it for granted that I am simply waiting for news. In haste, yours ever, John Seward. Dr. Seward's Diary. 7th September. The first thing Van Helsing said to me when we met at the Liverpool Street was, "Have you anything to your young friend, the lover of her?" "No," I said. "I waited till I had seen you, as I said in my telegram. I wrote him a letter simply telling him that you were coming, and Miss Westerner was not so well, and that I should let him know if need be." "Right, my friend," he said. "Quite right. Better he not know as yet. Perhaps we shall never know. I pray so. But if it be needed, then he shall know all. And, my good friend John, let me caution you. You deal with the madmen. All men are mad in some way or the other, and inasmuch as you deal discreetly with your madmen, so deal with God's madmen too, the rest of the world. You tell not your madmen what you do, nor why you do it. You tell them not what you think. So you shall keep knowledge in its place, where it may rest, where it may gather its kind around it and breed. You and I shall keep as yet what we know here, and here." He touched me on the heart and on the forehead, and then touched himself the same way. "I have for myself thoughts at the present. Later I shall unfold to you." "Why not now?" I asked. "It may do some good. We may arrive at some decision." He stopped and looked at me and said, "My friend John, when the corn is grown, even before it has ripened, while the milk of its mother earth is in him, and the sunshine has not yet begun to paint him with its gold, the husbandman he pull the ear and rub it between his rough hands, and blow away the green chaff, and say to you, 'Look, he's good corn. He will make a good crop when the time comes.'" I did not see the application, and told him so. For reply, he reached over and took my ear in his hand, and pulled it playfully, as he used to long ago during the lectures, and said, "The good husbandman tell you so then he knows, but not till then. But you do not find the good husbandman dig up his planted corn to see if he grow. That is for the children who play at husbandry, and not for those who take it as the work of their life. See you now, friend John. I have sown my corn, and nature has her work to do in making it sprout, if he sprout at all. There is some promise. And I wait till the ear begins to swell," he broke off, for he evidently saw that I understood. Then he went on, and very gravely, "You were always a careful student, and your casebook was ever more full than the rest. You were only student then. Now you are master, and I trust that good habits have not failed. Remember, my friend, that knowledge is stronger than memory, and we should not trust the weaker. Even if you have not kept the good practice, let me tell you that this case of our dear Miss is one that may be, mind, I say may be,
of such interest to us and others that all the rest may not make him kick the beam, as your people say. Take then good note of it. Nothing is too small. I counsel you, put down in record even your doubts and surmises. Hereafter it may be of interest to you to see how true you guess. We learn from failure, not from success.
When I described Lucy's symptoms, the same as before, but infinitely more marked, he looked very grave, but said nothing. He took with him a bag in which were many instruments and drugs.
The ghastly paraphernalia of our beneficial trade,
as he once called, in one of his lectures, the equipment of a professor of the healing craft. When we were shown in, Mrs. Westerino met us. She was alarmed, but not nearly so much as I expected to find her. Nature, in one of her beneficial moods, has ordained that even death has some antidote to its own terrors. Here, in a case where any shock may prove fatal, matters are so ordered that, for some cause or other, the things not personal, even the terrible change in her daughter to whom she is so attached, do not seem to reach her. It is something like the way tame nature gathers round a foreign body, envelop of some insensitive tissue which can protect from evil that which it would otherwise harm by contact. If this be an ordered selfishness, then we should pause before we condemn anyone for the vice of egoism, for there may be deeper roots for its cause than we have knowledge of. I used my knowledge of this plane of spiritual pathology, and laid down a rule that she should not be present with Lucy or think of her illness more than was absolutely required. She assented readily, so readily that I saw again the hand of nature fighting for life. Van Helsing and I were shown up to Lucy's room. If I was shocked when I saw her yesterday, I was horrified when I saw her today. She was ghastly, chalkily pale. The red seemed to have gone even from her lips and gums, and the bones of her face stood out prominently. Her breathing was painful to see or hear. Van Helsing's face grew set as marble, and his eyebrows converged till they almost touched over his nose. Lucy lay motionless, and did not seem to have strength to speak, so for a while we were all silent. Then Van Helsing beckoned to me, and we went gently out of the room. The instant we had closed the door, he stepped quickly along a passage to the next door, which was open. Then he pulled me quickly in with him and closed the door.
My God, he said, this is dreadful. There is no time to be lost. She will die for sheer want of blood to keep her heart's action as it should be. There must be transfusion of blood at once. Is it you or me?
I'm younger and stronger, Professor. It must be me.
Then we get ready at once. I will bring up my bag. I am prepared.
I went downstairs with him, and as we were going there was a knock at the hall door. When we reached the hall, the maid had just opened the door, and Arthur was stepping quickly in. He rushed up to me, saying in an eager whisper, "Jack, I was so anxious. I read between the lines of your letter, and have been in an agony. The dad was better, so I ran down here to see for myself. Is this not the gentleman, Dr. Van Helsing? I am so thankful you, sir, for coming." When first the professor's eye had lit upon him, he had been angry at any interruption at such time. But now, as he took in his stalwart proportions and recognized the strong young manhood which seemed to emanate from him, his eyes gleamed. Without a pause, he said to him gravely as he held out his hand,
"Sir, you have come just in time. You are the lover of our dear miss. She is bad, very, very bad. Nay, my child, do not go like that,"
for he suddenly grew pale and sat down in a chair almost fainting.
"You are here to help her. You can do more than any to live, and your courage is your best help."
"What can I do?" said Arthur hoarsely. "Tell me, and I shall do it. My life is hers, and I would give the last drop of my blood in a body for her." The professor was strongly humorous side. and I could, from an old knowledge, detect a trace of its origin in his answer. My young sir, I do not ask so much as that. Not the last. What shall I do? There was a fire in his eyes, and his nostrils quivered with intent. Van Helsing slapped him on the shoulder. Come, he said. You are a man, and it is a man we want. You are better than me, better than my friend John. Arthur looked bewildered, and the professor went on by explaining in a kindly way. Young miss is a bad, very bad. She wants blood, and blood she must have or die. My friend John and I have consulted, and we are about to perform what we call a transfusion of blood. To transfer from full veins of one to empty veins which pine for him. John was to give his blood, as he is more young and strong than me. Here Arthur took my hand and wrung it in hard silence. But now you are here, you are more good than us, old or young, who toil much in the world of thought. Our nerve is not so calm, or our blood is not as bright as yours. Arthur turned to him and said, If you only knew how gladly I would die for her, you would understand. He stopped, with a sort of choke in his voice. Good boy, said Van Helsing. And the not so far off, you will be happy that you have done all for her you love. Come now, and be silent. You shall kiss her once before it is done, and then you must go, and you must leave at my sign. Say no word to madame. You know how it is with her. There must be no shock. Any knowledge of this would be one. Come. We all went up to Lucy's room. Arthur, by direction, remained outside. Lucy turned her head and looked at us, but said nothing. She was not asleep, but she was simply too weak to make the effort. Her eyes spoke to us, that was all. Van Helsing took some things from his bag and laid them on a little table out of sight. Then he mixed a narcotic, and coming over to the bed, said cheerfully, Now, little miss, here's your medicine. Drink it off like a good child. See, I lift you so that you can swallow it easy. Yes. He had made the effort, with success. It astonished me how long the drug took to act. This, in fact, marked the extent of her weakness. This time seemed endless until sleep began to flicker in her eyelids. At last, however, the narcotic began to manifest its potency, and she fell into a deep sleep. When the professor was satisfied, he called Arthur into the room and bade him strip off his coat. Then he added, You may take that one little kiss whilst I bring over the table. Friend John, help me. So neither of us looked while he bent over her. Van Helsing turned to me and said, He is so young and strong, and of blood so pure that we need not defibrate it. Then, with swiftness and with absolute method, Van Helsing performed the operation. As the transfusion went on, something like life seemed to grow back in poor Lucy's cheeks, and through Arthur's growing power, the joy of his face seemed absolute to shine. After a bit, I began to grow anxious, for the loss of blood was telling on Arthur, strong man as he was. It gave me an idea of what a terrible strain Lucy's system must have undergone, that what weakened Arthur only partially restored her. But the professor's face was set, and he stood watch in hand, and with his eyes fixed now on the patient, and now on Arthur. I could hear my own heart beat. Presently he said in a soft voice, Do not stir for an instant. It is enough. You attend him, I will look to her. When all was over, I could see how much Arthur was weakened. I dressed the wound and took his arm to bring him away. When Van Helsing spoke without turning around, the man seemed to have eyes in the back of his head. The brave lover, I think, deserve another kiss, which he shall have presently. And as he now finished his operation, he adjusted the pillow to the patient's head. As he did so, the narrow black velvet band which she seemed to wear around her throat, buckled with an old diamond buckle which her lover had given her, was dragged up a little, and showed a red mark on her throat. Arthur did not notice it, but I could hear the deep hiss and withdrawn breath, which is one of Van Helsing's ways of betraying emotion. He said nothing at the moment, but turned to me, saying, "Now take down our brave young lover. Give him to the port wine, and let him lie down a while. He must then go home and rest, sleep much, and eat much, that he may be recruited of what he has so given of his love. He must not stay here. Hold a moment. I may take, sir, that you are anxious of the result. Then bring it with you in all ways. The operation was successful. You have saved her life this time, and you can go home and rest easy in mind that all that can be is. I shall tell her all when she is well. She shall love you none the less for what you have done. Goodbye." When Arthur had gone, I went back to the room. Lucy was sleeping gently, but her breathing was stronger. I could see the counterpane move when her breast heaved. By the bedside sat Van Helsing, looking at her intently. The velvet band again covered the red mark. I asked the professor in a whisper, "What do you make of that mark on her throat?" "What do you make of it?" "I have not seen it yet," I answered, and there proceeded to loose the band. Just over the external jugular vein there were 2 punctures, not large, but not wholesome looking. There was no sign of disease, but the edges were white and worn looking, as if by some tritorition. It at once occurred to me that this wound, or whatever it was, might be the means of the manifest loss of blood. But I abandoned the idea as soon as it formed, for such a thing could not be. The whole bed would have been drenched in scarlet with the blood of which the girl must have lost to leave such a pallor as she had before the transfusion. "Well?" said Van Helsing. "Well," said I can make nothing of it." The professor stood up. "I must go back to Amsterdam tonight," he said. "There are books and things there which I want. You must remain here all night, and you must not let your sight pass from her." "Shall I have a nurse?" I asked. "We are the best nurses, you and I. You keep watch all night. See that she's well fed, and that nothing disturbs her. You must not sleep at all tonight. Later we can go sleep, you and I. I shall be back as soon as possible, and then we may begin." "May begin?" I said. "What on earth do you mean?" "We shall see," he answered as he hurried out. He came back a moment later, and put his head inside the door, and said, with a warning finger held up, "Remember, she is your charge. If you leave her and harm befall, you shall not sleep easy hereafter." Dr. Seward's diary continued. 8th of September. I sat up all night with Lucy. The opiate worked itself off towards dusk, and she waked naturally. She looked a different being from what she had been before the operation. Her spirits were even good, and she was full of a happy vivacity, but I could see evidences of absolute prostration which she had undergone. When I told Mrs. Westerina that Dr. Van Helsing had directed that I should sit up with her, she almost pooh-poohed the idea, pointing out her daughter's renewed strength and excellent spirits. I was firm, however, and had made preparations for my long vigil. When her maid had prepared her for the night, I came in, having in the meantime had supper, and took a seat by the bedside. She did not in any way make objection, but looked at me gratefully whenever I caught her eye. After a long spell she seemed sinking off to sleep, but with an effort seemed to pull herself together and shake it off. This was repeated several times, with greater effort and shorter pauses as the time moved on. It was apparent that she did not want to sleep, so I tackled the subject at once. "You do not want to go to sleep?"
Oh, I'm afraid.
Afraid to go to sleep? Why so? It is the boon we all crave for.
Ah, not if you were like me. If sleep was to you a passage of horror.
Presage of horror? What on earth do you mean?
I don't know. Oh, I don't know. And that is what is so terrible. All the sweetness comes to me in sleep, till I dread the very thought.
But my dear girl, you may sleep tonight. I am here watching you, and I can promise that nothing will happen.
Ah, I can trust you.
I seized the opportunity, and I said, I promise you that if I see any evidence of bad dreams, I will wake you at once.
You will? Oh, will you really? How good you are to me. Then I will sleep.
And almost at the word she gave a deep sigh of relief and sank back, asleep. All night long I watched her. She never stirred, but slept on and on, in a deep, tranquil, life-giving, health-giving sleep. Her lips were parted slightly, and her breast rose and fell with the regularity of a pendulum. There was a smile on her face, and it was evident that no bad dreams had come to disturb her peace of mind. In early morning her maid came, and I left her to her care, and took myself back home, for I was anxious about many things. I sent a short wire to Van Helsing and to Arthur, telling them of the excellent result of the operation. My own work, with its manifold errors, took me all day to clear off. It was dark when I was able to inquire about my esophagus patient. The report was good. He had been quite quiet the past day and night. A telegram from Van Helsing at Amsterdam whilst I was at dinner suggested that I should be at the Helsing tonight, as it might as well be at hand, and stating that he was leaving by the night mail and would join me early in the morning. 9th September. I was pretty tired and worn out when I got to Helsing. For 2 nights I had hardly had a wink of sleep, and my brain was beginning to feel the numbness which marks cerebral exhaustion. Lucy was up and in cheerful spirits. When she shook hands with me, she looked sharply in my face and said,
No sitting up tonight for you. You are worn out. I'm quite well again. Indeed, I am. And if there is to be any sitting up, it is I who will sit up with you.
I would not argue the point, but went and had my supper. Lucy came with me, and enlivened by her charming presence, I made an excellent meal, and had a couple of glasses or more of an excellent port. Then Lucy took me upstairs, and showed me a room next to her own, where a cozy fire was burning.
Now, she said, you must stay here. I shall leave this door open and my door too. You can lie on the sofa, for I know that nothing would induce any of you doctors to go to bed whilst there's a patient above the horizon. If I want anything, I shall call out, and you can come to me at once.
I could not but acquiescence, for I was dog-tired, and could not have sat up had I tried. So, on renewing her promise to call me if she should want anything, I lay on the sofa, and forgot all about everything. Lucy Westerner's Diary, 9th September.
I feel so happy tonight. I have been so miserably weak that to be able to think and move about is like feeling sunshine after a long spell of east wind out of the steel sky. Somehow Arthur feels very, very close to me. I seem to feel his presence warm about me. I suppose it is that sickness and weakness are selfish things and turn our inner eyes and sympathy on ourselves, whilst health and strength give love rein, and in thought and feeling he can wander where he wills. I know where my thoughts are. If Arthur only knew. My dear, your ears must tingle as you sleep as mine do waking. Oh, the blissful rest of last night! How I slept with that dear, good Dr. Seward watching me! And tonight I shall not fear to sleep, since he is close at hand and within call. Thank everybody for being so good to me. Thank God. Good night, Arthur.
Dr. Seward's Diary, 10th September. I was conscious of the professor's hand on my head and started awake in a second. That is one of the things that we learn in the asylum at any rate.
How is our patient?
Well, when I left her, or rather, when she left me, I answered.
Come, let us see, he said.
And together we went into the room. The blind was down, and I went over to raise it gently, whilst Van Helsing stepped with his soft, cat-like tread over to the bed. As I raised the blind, the morning sunlight flooded the room. I heard the professor's low hiss of inspiration, and knowing its rarity, and deadly fears shot through my heart. As I passed over, he moved back, and his exclamation of horror, Gott Himmel! Needed no enforcement from his agonized face. He raised his hand and pointed at the bed, and his iron face was drawn and ashen white. I fell to my knees and began to tremble. There on the bed, seemingly in a swoon, lay poor Lucy, more horribly white and wan-looking than ever. Even the lips were white, and the gums seemed to have shrunken back from the teeth, as we were sometimes seen in a corpse after a prolonged illness. Van Helsing raised his foot to stamp in anger, but the instinct of his life and all the long years of habit stood to him, and he put it down softly again. Quick, he said, bring the brandy. I flew to the dining room and returned with a decanter. He wetted the poor white lips with it, and together we rubbed palm and wrist and heart. He felt her heart, and after a few moments of agonized suspense,
It is not too late. It beats, though but feebly. All of our work is undone. We must begin again. There is no young Arthur here now. I have to call on you yourself this time, friend John.
As he spoke, he was dipping into his bag and producing the instruments for transfusion. I had taken off my coat and rolled up my shirt sleeve. There was no possibility of an opiate just at present, and no need of one, and so, without a moment's delay, we began the operation. After a time, it did not seem a short time either, for the draining away of one's blood, no matter how willingly it be given, is a terrible feeling. Van Helsing held up a warning finger.
Do not stir, he said, but I fear that with growing strength she may wake, and that would make danger. Oh, so much danger. But I shall precaution take. I have a hypodermic injection of morphia.
He produced them, swiftly and deftly, to carry out his intent. Then the effect on Lucy was not bad, for the faint seemed to merge subtly with the narcotic sleep. It was with a feeling of personal pride that I could see a faint tinge of color steal back from the pallid cheeks and lips. No man knows, till he experiences it, what it is to feel his own lifeblood drawn away into the veins of a woman he loves. The professor watched me critically.
That will do, he said.
Oh, already? I remonstrated. You took a great deal more from art, to which he smiled a sad sort of smile as he replied.
He is her lover, her fiancé. You have work, much work to do for her and for others, and the present will suffice.
When we stopped the operation, he attended to Lucy whilst I applied digital pressure to my own incision. I lay down whilst I waited his leisure to attend to me, for I felt faint and a little sick. By and by he bound up my wound and sent me downstairs to get a glass of wine for myself. As I was leaving the room, he came after me and half whispered,
Mind, nothing must be said of this. If our young lover should turn up unexpected as before, no word to him. It would at once frighten him and enjealous him too. There must be done so.
When I came back, he looked at me carefully and then said,
You are not much the worse. Go into your room and lie on your sofa and rest a while. Then have much breakfast and come here to me.
I followed out his orders, for I knew how right and wise they were. I had done my part. Now my next duty was to keep my own strength. I felt very weak, and in the weakness lost something of the amazement at what had occurred. I fell asleep on the sofa, however, wondering how over and over again how Lucy had made such a retrograde movement, and how she could have been drained of so much blood with no sign anywhere to show of it. I think I must have continued to wonder in my dreams, for sleeping and waking my thoughts always came back to the little punctures on her throat and the ragged, exhausted appearance of their edges, though tiny they were. Lucy slept well into the day, and when she woke she was fairly well and strong, though not nearly so much as the day before. When Van Helsing had seen her, he went out for a walk, leaving me in charge, with strict injunctions that I was not to leave her for a moment. I could hear his voice in the hall, asking the way to the nearest telegraph office. Lucy chatted with me freely, and seemed quite unconscious that anything had happened. I tried to keep her amused and interested. When her mother came in to see her, she did not seem to notice my change whatsoever, but said to me gratefully,
"We owe so much to you, Dr. Stewart, for all you have done, for you really must now take care not to overwork yourself. You are looking pale yourself. You want a wife to nurse and look after you a bit. That you do."
As she spoke, Lucy turned crimson, though it was only momentary, for her poor wasted veins could not stand for long of an unwanted drain to the head. The reaction came in expressive pallor as she turned imploringly to me. I nodded and smiled and laid my finger on my lips with a sigh and sank back amid her pillows. Van Helsing returned in a couple of hours and presently said to me,
"Now you go home and eat much and drink enough. Make yourself strong. I stay here tonight, and I shall sit up with the little miss myself. You and I must watch this case, and we must have none other to know. I have grave reasons. No, do not ask them. Think what you will. Do not fear to think even the most probable. Good night."
In the hall, two of the maids came to me and asked if either of them might sit up with Miss Lucy. They implored me to let them, and when I said it was Dr. Van Helsing's wish that either he or I should sit up, they asked me quite piteously to intercede with the foreign gentleman. I was touched by their kindness. Perhaps it was because I am weak at present, or perhaps it was Lucy's account that their devotion was manifested, for over and over again have I seen similar instances of women's kindness. I got back here in time for late dinner, went my rounds, all well, and set this down whilst waiting for sleep. It is coming. 11 September. This afternoon I went over to Hillingham, found Van Helsing in excellent spirits and Lucy much better. Shortly after I had arrived, a big parcel from abroad came for the professor. He opened it with much empressement, assumed, of course, and showed a great bundle of white flowers.
"These are for you, Miss Lucy," he said. "For me? Oh, Dr. Van Helsing." "Yes, my dear, but not for you to play with. These are medicines."
Here Lucy made a wry face.
"Nay, but they are not to take in the deduction or nauseous form, so you need not snub that so charming nose, or I shall point out to my friend Arthur what woes he may have to endure in seeing such beauty that he loves and such comforts. Aha, my pretty miss, the bring of such a nice nose is straight again. This is medicinal, but you do not know how. I put them in your windows, and make a pretty wreath and hang them around your neck, so that you will sleep well. Oh, yes, they are like the lotus flower, make your trouble forgotten. It smell like the waters of Lethe, and of that fountain of youth that the conquistadors fought for in Florida, and find him all too late."
Whilst he was speaking, Lucy had been examining the flowers and smelling them. Now she threw them down, saying in half laughter and half disgust,
Oh, Professor, I believe that you're only putting a joke on me. Why, these flowers are only common garlic.
To my surprise, Van Helsing rose up and said with all sternness, his iron jaws set and his bushy eyebrows meeting,
No trifling with me. I never jest. There is a grim purpose in all I do, and I warn you that you do not thwart me. Take care, for the sake of others, if not for your own.
Then, seeing poor Lucy scared, as she might well be, he went on more gently.
Oh, little miss, my dear, do not fear me. I only do for your good. But there is much virtue to you in those little common flowers. See, I place them myself in your room. I make myself a wreath that you were to wear. But hush! No telling to others that make so inquisitive questions. We must obey, and silence is part of the obedience. And obedience is to bring you strong and well into loving arms that wait for you. Now sit a while. Come with me, friend John, and you shall help me deck the room with my garlic, which is all the way from Helsing, where my friend Vanderpool raises herbs in his glasshouses all year. I had to telegraph today, or they would not have been here.
We went into the room, taking the flowers with us. The professor's actions were certainly odd, and not to be found in any pharmacopoeia that I had heard of. He had fastened up the window and latched them securely. Next, taking a handful of the flowers, he rubbed them all over the sashes, as though to ensure that every whiff of air that might get in would be laden with the garlic smell. Then, with a wisp, he rubbed all over the door jamb, above, below, and each side, and all around the fireplace in the same way. It all seemed grotesque to me. And presently I said, "Well, Professor, I know you always have a reason for what you do, but this certainly puzzles me. It is well to have no septic here, but would say that you are working some spell to keep out an evil spirit."
Perhaps I am,
He answered quietly as he began to make a wreath which Lucy was to wear around her neck. We then waited whilst Lucy made her toilet for the night, and when she was in bed he came and fixed the wreath of garlic around her neck. The last words he said to her were,
Take care you do not disturb it, and even if the room feel close, do not open window or the door. I promise, said Lucy, and thank you both 1,000 times for all your kindness to me. Oh, what have I done to be blessed with such friends?
As we left the house in my fly, which was waiting, Van Helsing said,
Tonight I can sleep in peace, and sleep I want. 2 nights of travel, much reading in the day between, and much anxiety on the day to follow, and a night to sit up without a wink. Tomorrow in the morning early you shall call me, and we come together to see your pretty miss, and so much more strong for my spell which I have worked. Ho ho!
He seemed so confident that I, remembering my own confidence 2 nights before, and with the baneful result, felt awe and vague terror. It must have been my weakness that made me hesitate to tell it to my friend, and I felt it all the more like unshed tears.